Hello, everybody. Dr. Brian Laskin here. Thank you very much for joining me for the OperaDDS paperless and teledentistry webinar. We have a lot of solutions at OperaDDS, and today we're going to focus on some of my favorite. Paperless, how to remove touch points in your practice, so important in this post-COVID-19 world, and also the exploding technology in dentistry, teledentistry, and what we've done at OperaDDS to bring you the most comprehensive teledentistry solutions on planet Earth. This is me right here, Dr. Brian Laskin. I am founder at OperaDDS and co-founder at TwoService, our new comprehensive teledentistry platform. My practice is called Lake Minnetonka Dental. I have the honor to serve as Chief Innovation Officer for Dental Care Alliance, so oversee innovation across about 350 practices across the United States of America. And I do a podcast called The Operatory, where we talk about the patient's perspective primarily, and what we call burying the dinosaurs in dentistry, or moving past outdated technologies and procedures to find a better way. Now, we are talking about a very big one of those today, which is paper. Let's move beyond it. Now, this is my practice, like I said, Lake Minnetonka Dental. I have a very keen focus on a few different things and most other software companies in dentistry. Number one is I value greatly our patients' privacy and security. So HIPAA compliance is a big deal to us and to me personally. And then also I have a practice just like most of you. So I recognize that all of our applications have to be easy to use and easy to access by anyone anywhere. Now, that 90-year-old grandmother has to be able to use your paperless forms as much as that 13-year-old that's just got off the Xbox. So we are a very different software company than other software companies in dentistry. We're not private equity backed. We are a small, mighty team bringing to you the most valuable solutions that we can at the least costly price, removing the extraneous information that a lot of other, for example, recall providers, where they just pack a whole bunch of features and overcharge you for things that you don't need. We're trying to make it so that you get the essential applications for the most value that you can. Now, that's been really important during this day and age in a post COVID world. We're going through so many changes with PPE and infection control protocols in our practices, and social distancing. How do we actually create great care for patients while we're distanced from them? And in this sort of changing environment, we don't know where things are going to eventually land. But what I can tell you is that there's been a slow, steady trend towards some really important changes in fundamentally, I think you'll see in dentistry. And the worst thing you can probably do is bury your head in the sand. Things have changed. Our patients' expectations have fundamentally changed because of a global pandemic. The world's changed, and our team's perspective on how we deliver care has changed quite a bit. So now I believe is not the time to invest a lot of money in external marketing and trying to, drum up new patients like maybe a few months ago we would have. Now is the time to focus on reopening your practice, gaining confidence in your patients, regaining the confidence of your patients, and gaining new confidence in your team members. If you're like me, sometimes you're on social media and you're reading online what other dentists are saying, but also what other team members are saying. And it's kind of scary out there, the perspective that some auxiliary members, some patients have. So we need to rebuild our confidence in in the care that we deliver. And hopefully we'll give you some tools to do that today. It comes down to some essential tools that I think in the new reality. Number one, pre-screening patients before they come into your practice. Paperless forms, which are a big deal in a world where people freak out signing a receipt at Target because they don't know who's touched that pen. It's important to go paperless. And I'll talk to you in a little bit about how you can go actually touchless in addition to paperless, which I think is vitally important today. And then, of course, teledentistry. How can we leverage remote care so that we can triage and do virtual consultations that's the definition of how you can social distance. Don't be in the same place. That's why applications like Zoom and FaceTime have been so overwhelmed during this time frame, and teledentistry has just absolutely exploded. We've been doing teledentistry at OperaDDS for over 3 years, and it's been phenomenal. But frankly, it wasn't that much use until COVID-19 hit. And I'm really excited to talk to you about our brand new teledentistry platform where we've really honed in on what's essential for dental practices to leverage this technology so that you can care the best for your patients and remain productive. But starting off, let's talk about pre-screening patients. In this COVID-19 world where we need to make sure we're keeping our patients and our teams safe, it's vitally important to send your patients a screening form prior to them coming in. Now, 2 years from now, hopefully much less than that, when this COVID-19 crisis has dissipated, I think we'll still be having large amounts of value to pre-screening patients because I think my tendency certainly, and I think the industry's perspective on being sick has changed. I was one of those people that 6 months ago, if I was sick, I was coming to work. Never again. I have my eyes have been opened. I will never want to have an employee who's sick coming into work again. And frankly, I don't want my patients coming in if they're sick too. So pre-screening patients isn't just during COVID-19. However, that's where this got created. Back in the 80s, we started wearing gloves and protective eyewear and masks due to the AIDS crisis. Well, you and I both know that has nothing to do with protecting yourself from AIDS, but we had a jump in how we handled our PPE due to that crisis, and I think we're going through that now. It's pretty obvious, and one of those, when it comes to technology, is paperless forms and pre-screening patients. This is what it looks like. So you can text or email a patient before they ever come in. This is the very first form that the CDC came up with. It was just 3 questions. It's a much longer form, and we have a couple different versions for everybody to use within OperaDDS. But the important thing is to send this to the patient before they come into your office. If the patient comes to your office, touches everything and opens the door, grabs a clipboard, and they check that they have COVID-19, game's over, and guess what? You lost. How do you manage that now, right? So getting it in the patient's hands beforehand, vitally important. I've been just absolutely shocked by the number of dentists that have said to me, you wouldn't believe it, Brian. I had a patient who was going to come in for an emergency, but they said yes to all 3 questions. It blows my mind, right? I mean, patients don't know that they're not supposed to be coming in if they have a toothache and COVID-19. Get the COVID-19 taken care of first, right? So it's important to get it in their hands. And here's how you do it. In OperaDDS, it's super easy on any device like a laptop here. Open up the forms, go to your COVID-19 screening form. Then you can search the patient and text or email it. If it's a new patient, you just type in their text number or their email address, sends it directly to the patient. On their end, they get it. They just answer the questions, sign, and hit submit. Could not be easier. Now, it's really important too that you text and email this to the patient before them coming in, not just because of so that you have the knowledge again, but what we're doing is sending it to their home so they don't touch the practice, right? They're not coming in and touching everything, like I said. And the same thing is true with our paperless forms. We want to be able to do the same thing, any form. If the patient comes to your office and you give them an iPad and they check all the boxes, they turn out they fill out their medical history. Well, yeah, it's paperless, but guess what? They've just touched that iPad, and then when you give it to the next patient, that patient's going to be thinking, how did they sterilize this thing? Now, I still would recommend having devices in your practice for patients to fill out. Maybe they don't have a device on them, but the vast majority of time, let's get it in the patient's hands on their own devices at home before they come into your practice. And that's what I mean by touchless, because they're not touching anything in your practice. They're touching their own device. Now, when a new patient used to come in pre-COVID, and maybe it's still going on in a lot of practices, and that's why you showed up here, is we would say people come in 15 minutes early so you can fill out your paperwork, right? No more paperwork. But if you say come in 15 minutes early for your appointment, it's basically about as effective as telling people to floss every day. It just doesn't happen. And then just look at the ridiculous, mundane, laborious tasks that we have. The people that are arguably the busiest people in our practices, the people who are sitting at that business desk and welcoming in patients. And when the phone rings and it's a prospective patient, it's their job to convert that prospective patient into a new patient. But we have them taking in forms, just trying to read horrible handwriting, doing data entry, scanning forms, shredding forms. It's a complete waste of time. And if you want to drive yourself nuts, time somebody taking in some of these intake forms, multiply it by the amount of time, by the number of times that they do it in a month, and that patient's that employee's salary, and you'll see how much money you're wasting on forms. That doesn't even include the paper and the toner. It's ridiculous, frankly, that pre-COVID-19, 85% of dentists were still using paper forms. I'm glad to see that it's taking off. I wish it was under better circumstances, but that might be a big reason why you're here. And to that, I congratulate you. It's vitally important. It will save you a ton of time, money, and free up people to do much higher value tasks. So, how do we get forms to our patients? This includes all the forms I'm going to be talking about today, including our pre-screening form and our other forms that we'll be talking about in a little bit. You can text or email them from directly within OperaDDS. No software to download, just log in from your browser, and you can text or email it directly to the patient. You can host them on your website. Easy to do. Just direct the patient to your website. They can fill out your forms in full HIPAA compliance there. Or you can embed a link within your patient reminders. We have a reminder system at OperaDDS. We're not going to talk about it today. It's a great system, but you can use any system. So if you use any recall system, you can easily embed our form links into the system that you already use. And our forms look great on any device. Now, this is a medical history from one of the most popular practice management systems, but what did we do? We made it look good. We made it look good on a phone, on a tablet, on a laptop, and on a desktop computer, because we know that our forms are representing your practice, and so we want it to look nice and clean and professional and good on any device. So we do that for all the practice management systems that we have a full integration with, as I'll talk about in a little bit. And we have all the forms that you'll probably need, all the intake forms and all your consent forms that you need. As this animation shows on the right, we also have them in Spanish. In red, we show the forms that we created for the COVID-19 crisis specifically, our pre-screening forms, as we already talked about. And we also have a virtual check-in. So when the patient's car side, they can, as I'll show you in a little bit, they can check in virtually. And if you want to modify our forms or create your own forms, super easy to do. We have the world's easiest form builder. Just drag and drop fields. You can change the titles. You can add signature lines. Whatever you want to build, you can build that form in minutes. It's right within your settings in OperaDDS. Very easy to do. Then the patient just clicks the form link, fills it out, even updating existing forms that they have, signs on their device, submits it, and you're good to go. What this little animation is showing here is that even when the patient's in our office pre-COVID-19, in addition to texting or emailing it to the patient so they fill it out on their own device, remember touchless dentistry, what this animation shows is that the patient's own device stores their information. So if we're asking for their address, it will pre-fill that line. When I'm filling out a form right now online and I have to actually type in my address, it feels like I'm going back 20 years, right? Again, we're representing your practice. We want you to be up to date with every other piece of technology that the patient is seeing out there in the real world. And this is how forms work. Let's make it easy for people, right? Let's text it, email to them, and have those pre-filled fields autofill. And then from your employee's standpoint, from your standpoint, couldn't be easier. You just review it, click to link that form to the patient, and automatically writes back to EagleSoft, Dentrix, Open Dental, OrthoTrack, and others. We have advanced integrations with all of these practice management systems that you see here. If you have questions about others, just click the link below, and we can answer those questions for you. Then when you do that, if there is new information or conflicting information with what you already have in your practice management system, as you see here, it will highlight the differences in red, and then you just click yes to overwrite the data that you already have in your practice management system. Now, if you change those values in the practice management system, automatically updates within OperaDDS. So very easy to control and update your forms and your patient's information. When you do that, it actually autofills those fields, checks all the boxes. So for example, here we have an EagleSoft medical history form that we're changing those fields. So it will trigger the alerts that the patient's now allergic to latex. So you don't have to do any data entry on your end. All you need to do is link that form to that patient, and the magic happens and checks the boxes for you. That's why Lena from NYC Dental says, we love it. What my staff and I love about OperaDDS forms, easy integration. You can use the forms on your website, email, text. I place a form on my website, good to go. Again, it's all about ease of use. It's all about easily accessible anywhere and in full HIPAA compliance. Let's move on to a feature that I never would have thought we would have need to build, which is car-side virtual check-in. Now, I've been practicing dentistry for 20 years, and I think one of the things that people love about my practice is coming in, grabbing a cup of coffee, and then sitting in the reception area. It's not possible now, right? So let's make this new experience as comfortable and convenient for our patients, our teams, and ourselves. So what we do is we allow you to send a virtual check-in form directly to the patient, again, via text or email, or they can do it from your website if you want to do it that way. This animation is showing you just fill it out. There's actually a spot for the patient to take a picture of their insurance card or their driver's license if they need to update their information. Send it over. There's a little checkbox to say that they're ready for their appointment and they're in your parking lot. On your end, you get a little alert that says the patient's name and that they filled out their virtual check-in. If you click on it, if there's new information like the new insurance card, you'll see it there. Couldn't be easier. So moving on to what I just am really thrilled about, we've been doing paperless forms and pre-screening forms, and our check-in forms are really just advanced paperless forms. But what I'm really excited to unveil to this audience, to you today on this webinar, is our teledentistry platforms that we've been building upon for 3 years, and right now we're unveiling a whole new solution, which is, I think, changes the game completely. But before I get into that, I want to talk about sort of the division that's happened within teledentistry and the myths that a lot of people have around teledentistry. So there's two types that the ADA has defined by their procedure codes of teledentistry. One is synchronous. So you can think of that like FaceTime or Zoom video conferencing. The other is asynchronous, which is like texting or Facebook messaging. So one happens live in real time. The other it can happen instantaneously, but it's a back and forth. So when we're talking about asynchronous teledentistry, again, it's similar to texting. The patients can send you pictures or video immediately, and you can respond immediately, but it doesn't happen in real time. Now, I think what most people think when they first hear about teledentistry, they're thinking of synchronous communication, talking like FaceTime or Zoom. I think that's dangerous because when the dust settles and we're past this crisis, there's a lot that can be done asynchronously, and that's how most people want to communicate. So take, for example, you have a little girl, Sally, who breaks a bracket off her orthodontic, off her orthodontics the day that you put them on. Let's say you put the brackets on Friday afternoon. She goes home, has dinner, and a bracket comes off. Sally starts crying. Mom and dad are freaking out because they just paid $5,000 for these things, and now they're broken, right? Well, the old way would be to call your office and then calling the emergency phone. You're going back and forth. You finally connect, and mom and dad are freaking out. You're like, well, I don't know what's going on, so I guess I'll call up my assistant, ruin everybody's weekend, go on in, bond the bracket on, right? Well, in the new reality with asynchronous teledentistry that we've been doing for a few years, all mom or dad has to do is snap a picture of it, send it to you. Any dentist who's been a dentist for more than a few weeks probably recognizes the value in seeing an image of a tooth versus asking a patient what's going on in their mouth, right? So even a synchronous teledentistry consult, you're probably going to want to see what's going on. So So giving the patients the ability to snap an image or two or 12 or a video and sending it to you, you can look at that and go, oh, this is what's going on, right? In my career, I've seen a cracked tooth be everything from a tooth off a denture, broken off at the gum line, a little chip of porcelain off a PFM to nothing, and all of those I'm going to be able to pre-screen way easier to triage that than talking to the patient and saying what's going on in your mouth. Patients just don't know, right? How could they? So we love asynchronous teledentistry, and I think it's undervalued when it comes to teledentistry by most applications, because once teledentistry got hot, the quick, easy thing to do was to take a HIPAA compliant video conferencing thing like Zoom that was HIPAA compliant, slap your logo on it and say, you're good to go. But with asynchronous teledentistry, it's way more convenient for you and your patients. You can sync directly back into the practice management systems. We just are not good as an industry with documentation, and when you're remote, it is much worse. And so making it easy for all this information to be written back into the practice management system is absolutely vital. And it's more comfortable for both of you. You know, if I'm sitting in my pajamas, I can be communicating with the patient versus having to look good and be on video camera. You know, if you're on a teleconference, probably 90% of the time people have their cameras off because they don't like being on the screen. And most patients, let's face it, 80% of patients in the United States have some type of dental anxiety, so they probably don't want to FaceTime with you. Look, I don't even FaceTime with my wife when I'm out of town, so why would I want to do that with my patients when I'm not working? I don't. Let's do it asynchronously whenever possible. And what's really important about having these tools, any teledentistry tools, is that if you have a patient that, let's say, chips a tooth, and let's say they give you a phone call and you're at a movie. You know, movies are 2.5 hours long now. It starts ringing. You have the option of either being inconvenienced or taking that call, right? So you let's say it goes to inconvenience and taking the call, or letting it go to a voicemail. So let's say you let it go to a voicemail, and you've got that patient is going to be called back 2.5 hours later. Well, that person has an urgent need. We live in a society where everything is instantly on demand. So the next thing that patient's going to do is go to Google and say dentist near me, and they're going to look for somebody that will see them like right away, right? We've all had that experience. That patient that we thought would never talk to another dentist and all the faith in you has an emergency. And then you call them back 3 hours later and they're like, oh, I already got in and saw Dr. Bob down the street. Happens to all of us, right? Because patients are seeking convenience. On the flip side, let's say you have this on your website and a patient Googles dentist near me, and one website is just like, oh, give us a call. You know, we do cosmetic dentistry, happy, no, nothing other than a phone number and email. This website says, we take care of you, send photos or video here, right? Of course they're going to go here because they can get an instant feedback, and that's what patients are looking for. So making it easy for you to do that saves your patients from going elsewhere and also is a massive new patient generator. And just like our other forms, very easy to do. You pull up the teledentistry form from within OperaDDS. You can text, you can email, you can have it on your website. Really easy. And we even have a video for patients that show them how to take quality images or video for you. So this little animation shows how patients are best using the back camera on their phone in a mirror. You can see that Megan is instructing people to pull their tongue out of the way and open wide. This image, if on a chipped tooth, is going to be way more valuable than having a 10-minute conversation with most patients most of the time. Then on your end, you get alerted, you open up the attachment, you can look at it and easily make a decision. Synchronous teledentistry, on the other hand, again, it's similar to FaceTime, it's similar to Zoom, it's chatting face-to-face in real time, can be valuable, but can also be a big pain if you do it incorrectly. Here's why. Let's go back to Sally, she had that bracket come off. Typically speaking, you're going to have to initiate that somehow. So either the patient's going to have to go online and figure out how to schedule it, or they're going to call you and you're going to send an invite. Then you're going to have to play the waiting game. I've been on so many teleconference calls lately, and in addition to having most people have to reboot their computer because they're muted or there's an issue, but one of you is always waiting, right? It's a pain in the butt. And then when you're talking to mom or dad, well, what does it look like? Well, you're still going to have to snap a picture of Sally's tooth and get it to me. Otherwise, Sally's going to have to wrap her mouth around the laptop webcam, which is not going to be diagnostic at all. So eventually, if you don't have a way to communicate asynchronously, the patient's going to call back and meet you at the clinic just like the old days. So what we've done is we've created a new platform for synchronous and asynchronous teledentistry to bring them together in a way that makes both massively more effective, and also it's the great way to get new patients. And so we call it Tooth Service. It's brought to you by OperaDDS. We have we've had the asynchronous platform with an OperaDDS for 3 years. This is a brand new platform for teledentistry that we've created to go where teledentistry is going to be, and I think you'll love it. The core from the patient's perspective of Tooth Service is this little widget on the lower right that we call Toothy. So if you see it, Toothy pops up on your website, or you can embed this button in your website. But Toothy asks a simple question: have a dental issue, right? You can send pictures, videos, or messages here. Start virtual consult. So if you click on Start Virtual Consult, if you have multiple locations, Toothy opens up and you can select the location. You can actually embed a video within here too. So if you have a patient tour video or an office tour video, or we also have like a video that shows patients what it's going to be like coming to practice in the post-COVID world, you can embed a video underneath this virtual consult bar too. And then once you click on the location, or if you don't have multiple locations, once you clicked Start Virtual Consult, we ask another simple question: how can we help you? I have a dental emergency. I'd like to schedule an appointment. I want to improve my smile, or I want to speak with someone virtually. What's important here is that we're giving the patient the option if they actually do want to speak to somebody virtually, which is the synchronous communication. And I'll show you what we do to make that way more convenient for you and the patient. But first, the first three options will bring you into an asynchronous consultation. So when you say you have a dental emergency, the patient just simply fills out some information. They're shown some photo of the photo to take, and then they submit that to you. If they need to schedule an appointment, there's a place for the patient to fill that out, and also an area if the patient wants to submit photos or video, they can do here too. If the patient wants to improve their smile, they go through a cosmetic questionnaire. So you'll have all that data recorded in the practice management system, and then we walk them through a series of photos to take so that you have all the information that you probably need to do a pre-screening visit. Obviously what we're doing here is pre-screening patients. This is not definitive care. The goal here is to get the patient into the practice so you can take your radiographs and do a more comprehensive exam. But you can do a lot with virtual consults. You can have the patient complete the cosmetic questionnaire. You can triage dental emergencies like we talked about before. You can look at spacing for dental implants. You can talk about TMD. You can do cosmetic consultations. So when the patient does come in, you have a lot more information. And then if a patient has massive amounts of needs, let's say somebody hasn't been to the dentist in 20 years, they're missing half their teeth, they don't need you to tell them that they have dental issues, right? They just need you to give them their options. And so somebody who hasn't been to the dentist in 20 years probably has shame. They're probably afraid. They're afraid of coming in, and they're afraid of what you're going to tell them. So by allowing patients to snap some photos, take some video, and submit it to you like this, it's a very non-threatening way, a very easy first step to get them into your practice. And so when you get the video, no matter what it looks like, when you get the images, somebody from your office can reach out to the patient and say, look, I know you haven't been in for a while. I can see your teeth, and you know what? We see people like you all the time. No big deal. We've got lots of options for you. Come on in. We'll take a few records. There'll be no lectures. We'll just give you a bunch of options, and then we can decide together what, if anything, you want to do. Right? That's how you bring in the big cases, by making it easy for patients to make that safe, easy first step. And asynchronous teledentistry is the best way. But a lot of patients might want to actually have a virtual chat. They might want to talk synchronously, or you might need to get some information from the patient live real-time chat. So we have that option for you within Tooth Service when the patient says they want to speak with somebody virtually. So if there's somebody available to take that call, the patient checks in, they put in their name and their email address. They take a quick selfie so you know that they are who they say they are. If somebody's not available, the patient can actually schedule a time predetermined that you set in your calendar, so they can schedule an appointment. And then either if they schedule an appointment or if it's somebody's available, what you can see on the right hand side of the screen is vitally important. We have a chat bot that asks the patient questions so we can capture as much information asynchronously before you have the video chat. So the first question is, are you a new patient? If the patient says, yes, I'm new, we're going to have them fill out the new patient forms, their financial policy or HIPAA compliance, whatever forms you have, medical history, prior to you even speaking to them. And you can review that on your end prior to having the real-time chat. So we're reducing the effort, reducing the time on your end, and also all of that information, of course, is going to be written directly back into the practice management system. At the timing of this recording, I think we're the only synchronous teledentistry application that has advanced integrations back to practice management, which is huge. We want to document. It's the second most common reason that people have that they lose malpractice claims is lack of documentation. So we want to make sure that all this information, without any effort on your part, gets put back into the patient record. Then when you have your video chat, you can chat on the right hand side of the screen, knowing that all that information is going to be written back into the practice management information software. So if you have a question that you want to have noted, you can write it to the patient and just say, I'll just answer it in the chat bot, just so I can remember next time I see it, right? And then at the end of it, uh, if the patient is actually an existing patient, not a new patient like I was showing you before, during your synchronous communication, you have a little card that comes up with the patient's information, also what they had done last. If they had a crown done, you'll know that might be what they're calling about, right? And their next visit, what they're coming in for next, and the patient's family information. And when the entire conversation is done, you have a spot to write your chart notes right here, and again goes right back into the practice management system, so you don't need to remember when you get back to the office what was that Jessica said. It's all right here for you to write down. Just a little bit about coding. I won't go too deep into it, but most states, check your state, check the insurances. Most states and most insurances are now covering teledentistry. As I said, the ADA has split teledentistry into two types, synchronous and asynchronous. Here's the codes here. They're not standalone codes. So if you are charging and it's available in your state, make sure to include an exam code, usually a D0140. And here's what Dr. Pint had to say. I'm loving OperaDDS Teledentistry. To look at a patient's tooth before calling my assistant on the weekend saves me from being the bad guy who interrupts her time off for something that isn't a true emergency. Great work, Opera. What's interesting about this testimonial from Dr. Pint is that it was pre-COVID-19. So during COVID-19, being able to triage emergencies was vitally important. We literally couldn't see people who were in emergencies. And I don't know how people who were doing it the old way with a phone call got it done, but it really makes it a lot easier when we're doing it through teledentistry. And if a patient does have a chipped tooth, and they need to have a crown, at least a crown, I'm not going to schedule them for a consultation and waste both of our times. I'm going to know what I'll probably be doing and get it set up so I can see my schedule with an OperaDDS. I know that patient is going to need to have a crown, so I'm going to get them scheduled Tuesday at 9 when I have time to do the definitive treatment, to do the crown in my office. Again, makes it massively more convenient and way more productive for you, which is, again, when we're reopening our offices, being able to mindfully schedule our patients is incredibly important to keep us productive. Also, like I said, we're trimming off the fat here. There's no risk for you. So we're giving you 30 days because you came to this webinar. Absolutely free. There's no setup charges. There's no long-term contracts. Zero risk to you. And we have two fantastic plans to give you. Number one is an asynchronous plan, which includes all of the forms I talked about: the pre-screening form, the paperless forms, the Easy Forms Builder, full right back to practice management system, virtual consults, Toothy, the triaging bot, and lead generation directly from your website. So it has everything that I talked about. The only pieces that it doesn't have are the synchronous video chat and the virtual reception area with the practice management integration, so you know who you're talking to. So asynchronous teledentistry, if you don't think you're going to be doing live chat, is only $89 a month after that first month, which again is totally free. If you want to add live chat, it's just $199 a month. And again, you can try it out absolutely risk-free for 30 days. So I'm going to run through some questions that we get asked tons of questions, a lot of information, I realize. So I'm just going to go through the most frequently asked questions that people have. How do I link to my patient? Very easy to do. We previewed it a little bit in this presentation, but when you get information back with an OperaDDS, there's a little tab that says not linked. You click it, you pick the patient, done. Okay, it's very easy to do, to link that patient's information. And then again, if an EagleSoft, Open Dental, medical histories, it's just going to trigger those boxes and you'll get the alerts completely within your practice management system. Can I receive pictures or video? Yes. In all of the forms that I talked about, you can put an easy uploader so that you can receive any images or any video from your patients, any combination, up to 20 gigs. So we're talking massive amounts of information. What if I'm in my underwear? I'd recommend asynchronous teledentistry, or put some pants on, or at least a jacket right before getting on a synchronous call with somebody. So everything we did, you can do from very conveniently without having to have a video chat with the patient. And then if you do have a video chat with the patient, send them the link, and while they're filling out their forms, while they're going through the chat bot, put on at least a shirt and make sure they can't see your pants. Like we've all seen that in the COVID-19 news articles and on online examples of people that have video chatted without recognizing that they were on camera, right? Do you need to download an app? Absolutely not. Everything we've shown you is either available from your website and from a browser, so nothing to download. Telling a patient to download an application so that they can send you an image of your tooth is incredibly inconvenient. How do I get started? Well, glad you asked. Go to www.operadds.com/tooth service. Again, no risk, no setup fees, no contracts. You can choose either the asynchronous plan for $89 a month or the fully synchronous plan, which includes, both of them include all the paperless forms, the car side check-in, the Easy Forms Builder, Toothy, the widget to put on your website, and everything. Just for $199 a month, we add the synchronous video chat and the virtual reception area. So thank you very much. I'm excited that you're here, and I can't wait to get you started. Go to operadds.com/tooth service.